First day of pads was today, and we're in day 5 of camp, and we're going to give you guys a full week recap of what went down in camp. And it's just an exciting time, Bryce. We're getting right into it. We're in the middle of things now. Things are really ramping up. So yeah, lots to talk about, lots to recap. What's going on?
Hey man, I'm just, super excited. Camp's been kind of, going like nuts right now, and seeing all the stuff that's been going on, from the rumors of Sam Howell struggling to how good Geno looks, this defense, and just the vibes around there that you're hearing from all the reporting stuff. Like, I'm super excited to talk about this, kind of recap what's been going on, and get the show on the road.
Yeah, let's get it going. Before we get going, guys, if you've been watching the channel and you haven't subbed yet, just go down, hit the subscribe button, and hit the like button and the notification button if you want to know when future episodes are dropping and you don't miss anything coming up in the future. So on the other side, we're going to recap first week of camp.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game.
Look at this run. What a run. Marshawn Lynch. Get off me.
DK.
Yes, sir.
Hey, it's John Schneider with the Seattle Seahawks.
And Washington's got a lead. Leon Wilson to catch. Dodson, Smith, and Jimbo. The Seahawks are going to host the NFC Championship.
Every year, the NFL does. Is it going to be
You've
another
got to
9
look for
and 8?
players
Mike
who
Macdonald
have got to finish something.
They have to fix the
Part of
offensive
his
line.
success and part of
Ambition of being the LOB.
Want to hear? That's trading DK Metcalf.
Play him aggressive.
This is the Hawks Zone Rundown with Ryan and Bryce.
Guys, welcome back to the show. Bryce, man, busy start to camp, man. It's just an awesome, amazing off season so far. New coaching staff, like we've talked about all off season, and guys just seem really excited. That's kind of one of my biggest takeaways so far from this last week. Just listening to the guys, and kind of I'm going to touch on a couple of guys, and in particular, two guys that are healthy and back on the field now are Tyrell Dodson and Jerome Baker, and just listen to those two guys, and kind of two different players, but two guys that were both asked why Seattle, and it came down to Mike Macdonald's the head coach here. Obviously they both said Seattle's a beautiful city and all this kind of stuff, but when you hear them get excited about, I'm coming here, and this guy's a first-year head coach, but obviously his past in Baltimore and Michigan, and how he's so dynamic and creative and young, and players are like, we want to come play for this guy already, first-year head coach. So that kind of gets you excited and pumped that these guys are just, obviously guys are excited to play for this guy. And it just gets me excited because that guys want to put in the work and get on the same page, and everybody seems like they're on the same page. And these two guys, man, I'm excited to see what they bring to the table. So that just right off the hop, man, those are kind of my takeaways from those two dudes, that just listen to these guys' press conferences, that right away it was just like Mike Macdonald came here for that reason.
Yeah, no, hearing Dodson and Baker both talk about their reasons for coming to Seattle and how easy of a decision it was, that's kind of been the vibe you've been hearing of a lot of guys, even, established players like Geno and Tyler Lockett and Witherspoon, and some of these guys just, they want to be here. They want to put in the work. And, listening to even some of these reporters talk and stuff, they've even been saying, like, how hard DK's working in camp. Like, right. DK's kind of pushing things and trying to get to that next level more so than maybe in years past. I'm not saying that DK didn't work hard in the past training camp stuff, but there's like this extra juice about everybody here. And it was interesting because I was watching Inside Training Camp today, and they had Ian Rappaport come on, and they asked him about, Seattle and kind of what the vibe is there like. And he said, talking with people in the building, there's a lot of respect for Pete, but there was a necessity of change needed in Seattle. And Mike Macdonald has come in and done that. And he said, you can see it in the building. Like, there's still essence of what Pete and John built, but there's this new energy and juice to it that's just kind of exploding out. And it really can be seen on the field with apparently the guys, like even Reek and DK got into it today, and they had a bit of a scuffle there. And that's, that's the things you kind of want to see a little bit in camp is two heavyweight players like a Rick Woolen and a DK kind of pushing on each other and trying to push each other and create that kind of culture again where it's like you're always competing every time you're out in the field. So, no, it's been good to hear throughout all the press conferences of all the players and coaches and stuff, the same kind of message is being delivered that they're there to compete.
Yeah, speaking of competing, a guy that we've talked highly about since he's been here, and I love the guy. I think he just got that dog in him. Tre Brown apparently has just been balling out, and it just seems like we talk about how deep that corner room is, but man, it just sounds like here's a guy he's just going to force his way to more playing time, kind of what he did last year. But now this room is just that much more established. Obviously, Witherspoon's the guy there. Reek. You think those are your two guys, but if Tre Brown just keeps playing, he's just going to continue to force himself. How do you see that play out? I know it's early so far in camp, but obviously you got a guy like Mike Jackson still around. If Trey just keeps playing how he shows up, guys are amped about him right now. Do you see Mike being the odd man out here, or do you just sort of see a place for everybody? Just the obviously Mike's a great tackler. How do you kind of see that happen?
It's interesting because I think it's going to be the top four that we've talked about for the longest time, being Witherspoon, Reek, Tre Brown, and Mike Jack. Pritchett and James, I think from what I've been reading and hearing is they make plays here and there sporadically, but they're not very consistent. The top four guys are the most consistent guys. Now, I honestly think Tre Brown's going to be fighting to be just the base corner outside. Like he's full on got it in his mind that he's coming to make a Pro Bowl or an All Pro this year, which is a great mentality. I honestly think it's going to be really interesting how that whole secondary shapes up and how Mike Macdonald, Leslie Frazier, and Durde decide to kind of use that secondary in their defensive schemes, because Kayvon Wallace apparently has just lit it up in camp. Rayshawn Jenkins has, Julian Love has. Now you're adding the corners into that conversation. I'm really getting very, very excited about what I'm hearing out of camp. And I honestly think Tre Brown could have a Pro Bowl season if he's the third corner. So when we're in nickel or dime or anything like that, and we bring extra DBs on the field, and he's now the outside because we've moved Witherspoon inside, and Reek's the guy following the number one, well, they're going to look to whoever that number two guy is. And if, say, Tre Brown's locked up on like Puka Nacua from the Rams, I like Tre's chances in those matchups. Like Tre's proven he doesn't shy away from those type of challenges.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then that, like you said, it just gets you excited because you brought up a guy like Kayvon Wallace and Jenkins, and apparently Wallace has just been playing, he's just balling out too. It just you get excited about sort of a guy like Mike Macdonald, how he has to look at this, be like, look at this versatility we have on here. Where you have, Jenkins, Love, and Wallace. There's your three safeties. Your corners are deep, but then you can maybe move Spoon inside. Like whatever he does, you just get excited for the secondary. We just talked about Dodson and Baker. It's just you see that there's a lot of talent. And Tyler Lockett had a presser today, and listen to Tyler. Obviously, when you listen to him, you kind of sit back and you talk about the young guys like JSN and DK, still a youngish guy. He's a veteran, but still in his prime. You kind of look at Tyler and you're excited he's still on the squad, because you lose a couple of vets on defense. And obviously there's going to be guys that step up. Looks like Julian Love could be one of those guys. Excited for him, man, getting that extension too. And something that we didn't really touch on, but, getting that extension and just kind of, you could see the way he talks and present himself and being a leader. And Tyler on the other side of the ball, just that veteran presence for guys like JSN, Jake Bobo, DK is going to do his thing, but, always good to lean on a guy like Tyler. So, and still he's motivated. He's extra motivated this year too. Listen to him. Guys are trying to write him off already. Him coming into this Ryan Grubb system too. I mean, you got to get, you got to think that he's getting a little excited. And you know what? Like you said, guys respected Pete and all this kind of stuff. But if you're a guy like Lockett, you've been in this league, this your 10th year. you could lose just naturally a little bit of motivation, and it's tough to come in, week in, week out. And, this could give him a little bit of extra juice to say, hey, I don't know how long I'll be here, but I'm extra amped to, put it together and ball out.
No, exactly. And that's the thing I think that you're seeing is even the veteran guys are kind of getting rejuvenated by this and the level of compete that's there. Some other guys that are making that are really making a good impression at the beginning of camp here, like Derek Hall. Apparently Derek Hall has been like getting first team reps opposite Chenna. So, we got Boye, Mafe, and Daryl Taylor, but apparently Derek Hall has like just decided that he's going to kind of show out in this first bit of camp, which has been really good. And then the other guys that even today, when they finally put the pads on, apparently Jarrell, Michael Jarrell there, the right tackle out of Findlay, Div 2 that we took late in the draft, apparently like he's looking a lot better than people initially thought. And there's a chance he may be the backup right tackle if Abe can't go and George Fant's the guy. Sounds like Jarrell might have an inside track already to that start or that backup role as the right tackle, who can also swing inside to guard if needed on the right side.
Yeah, no, yeah, and you also hear another guy that when they strapped up the pads for the first time today was Christian Haynes. Apparently, he showed out a lot. I can't remember who they said exactly. I think Greg Bell was talking about. He was going up against. Can't remember what. I think. Oh, it was. Who was he going up against? Williams.
Well, he had a couple good reps against Leonard Williams, apparently.
Leonard Williams, exactly. It was Leonard Williams and just stood his ground. Leonard wanted to give him a welcome to the NFL, and apparently he just stood in it. And so that just kind of gets you excited about both sides of the ball. Here's the offensive line and defensive line first day, and just you hear the names that are going against these guys. Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, Chenna. And that's the thing, we're talking about camp tonight, and we're talking about this first week, but it's just an overall excitement, and I think the players feel it too. Chenna looks over, he sees, hey, Leonard's in camp with me this year because he wasn't last year. Young guy, Byron Murphy, Mafe, ready to go. Like you just mentioned, Derek Hall. You got to be excited if you're on this D line in camp and you see all these dogs beside you ready to go. Like that just can't. It just helps you get extra motivated, putting in that work. Jaron Reed, another guy that I just forgot about. He had a presser a couple days back, and again, another guy, a veteran dude in there that can come in and help these younger guys. And I'm really excited about the mix, and just from what you're hearing out of camp, like you said, Tyrell, like guys fired up about that. And it just gets you excited that, this, like you said, DK going against Reek and having a battle and getting in each other's face. That's what you need to see. That's what winning teams are about, because it happens there at camp, and that's going to translate. So, and not to mention just the talent across the board, and we talked about, you brought DK up, and just, you and I sat here last week, and just talking about how we basically had the same offense last year, personnel wise, minus a few different old linemen and stuff like that. But to be this excited again, and to be like, man, DK and Noah are connecting, and DK and JSN apparently had a day. I think it was Saturday or whatever. So that, and because we're like, okay, maybe, these guys are going to be used to their potential. Tyler touched on that a little bit.
Well, it was also interesting today. I read something just in regards to how these days have been going. The defense wins one, the offense wins the other. But the one thing I've been hearing about Grubb's offenses and Geno, they've just kind of hit the ground running, and they're just going. Like it's not like how it usually is at the beginning of the camp where defense just totally dominates.
Right.
The offense has given the defense some issues, and it was interesting because I think it was Mike Jackson that got interviewed, and he kind of said an interesting thing about Geno in this offense. I'm just trying to find it right now so I can quote it correctly, but from what it sounded like, he said that the way this offense is being constructed reminds him of watching DK at West Virginia. Oh, here it is. Mike Jackson joined KJR 933 and said that this offense that Geno is working in is the same offense he had in college when he was at West Virginia. So there's a lot of principles clearly in this offense that are very similar to what DK or Geno's familiar with. And if anybody's watched what Geno did at West Virginia with Tavon Austin and that group, there's a game I think Geno put up 700 yards passing. It was ridiculous. Like he's so comfortable in that type of scheme. And that gets me excited knowing that Geno is now in an offense, particularly that is going to play to his strengths and what he's good at with the weapons around him. And I think it makes it really interesting to see how far this offense truly can go. The other thing that was, today that apparently was the big talk of camp, at least in pads, was Jake Bobo's catch.
Right.
Apparently he and I've seen it, he laid out and caught this ball that everyone thought was Sam Howell had thrown out the back of the end zone. And Bobo apparently just outstretched, full dive, catches this thing, pulls it in. And Tyler, I think, even talked about it in his press conference, saying it's one of the top 5 catches he's seen ever at a Seahawks training camp since he's been here. So there's another guy that, may not get all the press that we're, talking DK, Tyler, JSN. Jake Bobo might all of a sudden see kind of a spike in his usage and how Ryan Grubb's going to deploy 4 receiver sets this year. So I think that one thing that's kind of unique is how multiple the Seahawks can be now with a guy that understands using players to their strengths and matchups more than, say, our predecessor in Shane Waldron.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And Tyler did mention that top 5 catch. I mean, and that's a 10-year veteran. I mean, he's been to a ton of camps, right? This guy's been at camps for the last 10 years. So he's seen a lot of plays, a lot of great players. So that's a hell of a compliment from Tyler. Sticking with the offense, obviously, another guy obviously that we traded for, and he's backing Geno up, Sam Howell. First few days of camp didn't get the best praise in the world, missing a ton of throws. Apparently today looked a little better. Was making some good throws. Apparently, I think that was the Jake Bobo catch. That was from Sam. So, you kind of people are going to be quick to jump on this guy and all this kind of stuff. But let's remember one thing: it's early camp. We're just getting going. It's how he's kind of going up like this. Obviously, you expect a little more out of him because people think, okay, who is this guy? Is he just a backup? Or is this guy potentially, and I think a lot of people are looking at that, is this the potential next guy after Geno? Or do we have to look for that? So he's going to be under a microscope a little bit. What are your thoughts with Howell so far?
I think it's interesting because, Greg Bell put out the whole thing about Howell not being exactly that accurate and struggling. Right. And you know what? Like, I'm not totally surprised either by that. Like, I know some people maybe because Howell started last year in Washington, but you got to look at it. Howell's still a young quarterback. He's the same age as a Bo Nix and a Michael Penix right now that are rookies walking into the NFL. He's got 1 year of starting experience under his belt, and now he's going and learning a completely new offense in a completely new environment. You got to give the kid a little bit of slack in that regard and let him actually kind of figure it out. His first year, he didn't really have great mentorship in Washington. He had Taylor Heineke ahead of him, and he just basically kind of sat there the whole year. Then he learned a new offense. He's on his 3rd offense in 3 years, which isn't easy for a quarterback. Verbiage, all that kind of stuff. You look at Alex Smith, and I'm going to use him as a prime example. His first, I think it was 5 or 6 years in San Francisco, he had a new offensive coordinator every single season. There was no continuity from 1 year to the next. So you're learning a whole new system. And I get people say, well, Geno's learning the same system. Yeah, but Geno's also been in the NFL for, 12 years, 13 years now at this point, being a backup, going through that whole process. So for Geno, it's a little bit easier. And that's the same for PJ Walker. PJ Walker's been a pro quarterback a lot longer than Sam Howell is. So, today he started to put the blocks together for a better start to the training camp and getting himself down the right path. But I think we all need to temper our expectations a little because I think this is Geno's team. Right. I don't think there's going to be a competition. I think it's going to be, hey, look, Sam and PJ are going to fight it out for number 2. And I really think they're going to try and get PJ Walker onto the practice squad just because I think that's going to be their kind of goal to have as their emergency guy this year. The interesting thing is I was listening to Dan Vienza's show, Seahawks Forever, and he had G. Scott on. And Dan asked G a really interesting question. He said, in next year, who do you think is going to be what do you think the situation is going to be really for Seattle? Is it a guy that's not currently on the roster at quarterback or Geno Smith? And G's first response was he thinks it's the quarterback for the Seahawks next year is not currently on the roster. And then when Dan put, hey, what if he throws for 4,500 yards and 38 touchdowns and makes a Pro Bowl? Then G Scott changed the answer and said, hey, you know what? Then I could see Geno getting an extension some point during this year. There's a lot riding for Geno and the quarterback room as a whole on this season and how the offense goes. And so with the way that camp's been going the first bit here, it's got me optimistic that I think Geno's going to have a bounce back year from last year. And I'd say more of a bounce back half because he was pretty good down the stretch there, especially in that Pittsburgh game. So it'll be interesting to see. But I do think now with what's going on in camp and stuff like that, that this really is Geno's make or break season in Seattle.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think, and the other thing is these guys don't have any ties with Geno. Mike's coming in here. And like you said, to your G Scott point, if he shows up and has a great year, you and I talked about it. Like we could definitely see, Geno kind of getting maybe a 2-year extension. And it's not this, we got to grab this quarterback for the future. It doesn't mean you won't bring another guy on. But, Geno, we believe, especially if that offensive line shores up a bit with Scott Huff, we don't expect magic. But, hearing about a couple of young guys already in that interior, you got some mix of veterans. You're feeling a lot better this camp than last camp. Obviously, Abe Lucas injury is a concern, but he's working. Hopefully he can get right. There's going to be no announcement right now, whether he's starting. Obviously, we have our thoughts on that, whether he starts the season or not on IR. But even though we also said, you're just feeling better about the roster as a whole as far as that O-line is concerned. So that's just going to be a big thing, for Geno, obviously. And but what a start for him in camp coming in and just feeling good, looking good. It's not like he's not looking good. Guys are raving about Geno. So I'm excited to continue. And then one more thing I was going to say too, just as far as camp starting and everybody amped, Tyler brought it up today and how he just said, hey, it's kind of like, they said, Tyler, how's the first day with pads and all this kind of stuff? And he's like, man, it's hard to say, man. It's like the first day of school. Everybody's excited. Everybody's at. How do you continue that on and keep that on? And that's what having a guy like Tyler Lockett on your roster kind of, hey, we're going to keep everybody checked. This is a long season. This isn't just let's get amped for the first week, 2 weeks, and then sort of let our foot off the gas, right? This is a daily grind. So, having those guys, your own peers on this roster who can still ball is big time. So, and when he brought that up, you're like, yeah, you know what? There's a lot to listen. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot to be excited about early, but it doesn't mean it's just, okay, now this is how we are. We got to continue to grind, continue to put the work in. So, so that's how I look at it. And again, that's why, I love Tyler. You love Tyler. Just another, attribute that he brings to the table for sure. And it's showing up, early on in camp.
Definitely. And I think it's just going to be really interesting to see how this team kind of goes on. But one thing that did catch me by surprise in this first week was we had the Julian Love extension, which we're still waiting for the numbers on that whole thing. But Seattle actually made another move in their safety room when they cut Jonathan Sutherland and brought back 2019 second round pick in Marquise Blair. And that to me was kind of interesting. And I kind of had some interactions with some different Seahawk podcasters over Twitter and stuff. And the one thing we all kind of said, and what I've kind of heard too, is Kobe Bryant's having a very good camp at safety, not at corner, at safety. And this makes me wonder if Jarek Reed's recovery is kind of maybe not going as smooth. I know Mike Macdonald talked on it and said he could see him coming back in a couple weeks. But it also makes me wonder if they're looking at this because they're going to play more safeties on the field than initially anticipated. And that could affect the cornerback room, and maybe a DJ James or Pritchett don't make it because they'd rather carry an extra safety that can play multiple spots and look for that versatility. Because that's the one thing, if you remember with Mike Macdonald,
Right.
when he first came in was how he wanted to be versatile and how everyone needed to know how to blitz and everyone had to feel like the defense moves as this organism. And so for me, that kind of leads to the more positions you can play and be versatile, the more likelihood you make this defense in Seattle. Right. If you're just strictly, hey, I'm an outside corner or I'm just a safety, might be harder to make that team because you look, Julian Love can play both safety spots. So can Rayshawn Jenkins. Kayvon Wallace can play safety and nickel. You know, Witherspoon's a outside inside corner.
Yep.
You know, you got really Reed's the only one I would say that's truly an outside, but they've already kind of talked about it's going to be their lockdown guy.
Right. Yeah.
So it kind of makes me wonder with Kobe, now you've got another guy that can play safety and inside and outside corner, even in a pinch if needed.
Right.
The more versatility gives you, I think, a lot more ability to stay on this roster. And I think maybe that's why Sutherland got kind of cut and moved on for Marquise Blair, because when we drafted Marquise Blair, he was the same kind of player.
Yeah, I liked him.
He just couldn't get through the injuries.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think Jaron Reed touched on Marquise, and he's super pumped for him, super happy for him, because he's like, man, this guy deserves a second chance. I know you were high on Sutherland. Hopefully he gets a shot somewhere else, for a place where there's, man, a little less depth, because like you said, with all his versatility, you can't help but get excited with a lot of this talent, a lot of this versatility. Like, it's just the way you kind of look back, and I know I don't want to jump ahead because it is early, but you kind of look back at the start of free agency, and then the way John just slowly put this thing together, and then you jump into the draft and you get a guy like Byron Murphy and Christian Haynes, your first two guys, and you kind of we've graded it, and you're like, guys, again, panic right away because he's not making the big splash, but he quietly gets a Jerome Baker, quietly gets a Dodson, quietly gets a Jenkins, and all these guys, that to fit this mix, versatility, what you just said, and you look at it, and guys that had good years, like Dodson had a good year last year. Jenkins has had a last couple of years of the Jags, has played great ball. Like, these aren't just chumps coming in filling spots. So now that you're looking at this with Mike and this defense, and like you said, what Mike wants, versatility, knowing how to play hard, and sounds like early on he's not playing softy. Like, it's like he's gonna call you out. He called out Byron Murphy early on in rookie minicamp, I think, like, kind of like, hey man, you got to come in a little better shape. Like, he's not here to mess around. I mean, you're gonna know it if you're not tackling like we saw sometimes last year. You're not gonna have playing time. So I'm excited about all that stuff. What about the injury front, man? What are you seeing? I know. The Mike Morris, I think he left. Nothing.
Draymond Jones, Mike Morris has been okay. He's actually
Draymond's got a slight hammy thing.
Yeah, it's just a small hammy thing. Obviously, Abe Lucas has still got his issues with his knee, but he was pushing a sled today apparently inside.
Yeah,
so got some progress. But yeah, I so far they're pretty healthy through camp. I haven't heard of any significant injuries or anything that's lingering, besides obviously guys that are still on the PUP list or have got kind of things that have just kind of crept up, like Draymond Jones's hamstring. I know Easton Gibbs got taken off of the NFI list, so he's actually now back in that linebacker competition. So yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to see what this mock game's like on Saturday.
Yeah,
see how it kind of looks, which I'm kind of excited because I'll be going down to that. So I'm gonna bring back some kind of cool tidbits on that, and I'm gonna take a notepad and write notes on, because I can't video or take photos or anything. So I'll make some good notes in that for our show. But yeah, man, like, honestly, to recap this first week, I think it's probably been better than what everyone, I think, anticipated, just because it was so new. Mike Macdonald's new. This whole coaching staff is new together. I think it's gone smoother than what people thought. And the one reason I think that is because I was listening to Albert Breer. He was on 710 ESPN today. Or sorry, not 710 ESPN, 710 Seattle Sports. And they were doing an interview. And the one thing that he said is the biggest reason people, besides Mike Macdonald's scheming that makes him like McVay, apparently is his ability to communicate.
Right.
And he doesn't communicate like he's smarter than you. He communicates at your level so you understand it. And I think that's the biggest change, is the communication throughout that building I think has gotten clearer than maybe what it was before.
Yeah, just echoing that, I think it was Dodson who said exactly what you just said. He said that. He goes, "Hey, Mike is a smart dude. Like this guy's a smart dude." But he goes, "You know how some guys are smart dudes, and you just can't even understand because they're that smart. Mike's smart, and he doesn't dumb it down, but he just communicates it in a way that players are going to understand it. I'm still a coach. I'm smart. I got some creative and amazing schemes, and I'm always working, but I can communicate that so players aren't just sitting here confused because all these guys, they know how to play football, and that's what it comes down to. And they said, look, football is football. It doesn't matter the schemes. Like, yeah, it's a different language we have to learn, but the way Mike communicates it, it makes things smoother, like you said. So that is exciting. You don't just have this guy, oh man, it might take 3 months or 2 months to, we're week 8 and we're out of it. And now we're sort of getting it. Like it seems like you said, these guys are picking it up quick. Guys are excited. They're learning it. It's football and they're really picking it up. But it seems like on both sides of the ball with Grubb too. So yeah, this first week, man, with what guys have been saying to the media and what you've been hearing, great start, man. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next week. The mock game, man, it's gonna be exciting to hear a lot of your thoughts when you come back down there. We're obviously gonna talk about that right after, and yeah, so that's gonna be really cool. Yeah, so you guys, just that was a quick recap for you guys. Camp is rolling along, continues on this week, and we're gonna have some more stuff coming up, some more great stuff coming up actually, and especially well, I'll just touch on, we got Greg Bell coming back on the show middle of camp here, preseason stuff. So it's going to be awesome having Greg. You guys got to tune in for that because he is down there every day, right on the field, just on the ground, boots on the ground, and one of the head beat writers. So it is going to be awesome having him back and just talking Hawks and getting a real good insight of how this team's looking. So he's going to be around mid-August. And Bryce, when you let listeners know who else we got coming up real quick.
So Wednesday this week, we'll have Mark Burns from the Rams Up podcast coming on, kind of doing our NFC West rivals edition thing. So we'll have a kind of an update on what's going on down in LA with the Rams, how Mark sees the changes, obviously, that the Hawks have done this year, and some of the things that have been going on at Rams camp. And then August 5th, so next Monday, we have our live Q&A that we have been promising everybody for the past couple weeks. Me and Ryan will be coming on. We'll be doing, getting all your questions. We'll do a recap of the mock game there. I'll bring my notes, and also Dan Viens will be stopping by on that show to answer any questions and that from you guys, our listeners. So those are kind of the things we got coming up in the next week here or so. And then we've got another special guest that I will announce on the live Q&A that'll be joining us next week for a show. So that'll be kind of a little tidbit for everyone to tune in to see who we've got coming on.
Yeah, no, that's it's going to be exciting. It's going to be a lot of fun with doing that live Q&A. And guys, so yeah, just hit that notification button, man, because you don't want to miss these episodes coming up. We're gonna be talking camp, preseason, getting you guys ready for the season. We're both pumped. I'm sure everybody's getting excited. So that's it tonight, and we're gonna catch you guys on the next one. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.